My name is Nathan Cole. I'm 28, a marketing analyst in a glass-walled firm downtown Chicago, though home still smells faintly of salt water and pine from the Maine coast where I grew up. This is the story I've never told anyone. I call it. She opened the door in her nightgown and said, "You're exactly on time." The night began like 100 others. Numbers in a spreadsheet glowing pale blue on my laptop screen. My tie loosened, my boss's voice in my head. We'd just finished a brutal pitch for a high-profile cosmetics account. Long days, late nights, pizza boxes on conference tables. And her, Claire, creative director, 7 years my senior, with a mind like a scalpel and a laugh like rain. Claire and I worked side by side for weeks. She pushed me hard, made me better, but every time she brushed my arm reaching for a folder, every time her gaze lingered a fraction too long across the table, something lit up in me that had nothing to do with work. I'd catch her slipping her shoes off under the table, stretching her toes, looking tired but radiant. She had a reputation for being untouchable. Married once, divorced, no gossip since. That Friday, the night we landed the account, everyone went out for drinks. The team roared and clinked glasses. Claire stayed back, saying she had family stuff. I left early too. My father had called again. He was drinking, angry. "You forgot your mother's memorial," he slurred. It had been 10 years since the accident, yet somehow I was still the villain in his story. On the train home, my phone buzzed. "Need to see you. Can you come over?" The message was from Claire. No context, just her address in Lincoln Park. It was raining by the time I climbed the stone steps to her brownstone. The windows were dark. My heart was a drum. Part of me thought she'd want to talk about the campaign or a new project. Another part of me, a reckless, younger part, hoped for something else. I knocked. Nothing. Then a click of a lock, and the door cracked open. Warm light spilled out, honey gold against the wet street. She stood there barefoot, hair loose, wearing a pale gray nightgown that brushed her knees. "You're exactly on time," she said softly. Her voice carried no surprise, as though she'd been expecting me all along. "On time for what?" I asked, stepping inside. She closed the door behind me. "For the truth," she said. The air smelled of chamomile tea and raindamp wood. She led me to the kitchen. A single pendant lamp swung faintly overhead. On the counter, 2 mugs steamed. "I didn't know you drink tea," I said. "You don't know a lot about me," she replied with a small smile. We sat across from each other at her butcher block table. Outside, the rain drummed harder. Inside, it was just the hiss of the kettle cooling and our breathing. She took a sip, then stared into the mug. "I shouldn't be alone tonight," she murmured. I hesitated. "Is this about work? Did something happen?" "No, not work." She looked up, eyes shining. "My brother called. He's in trouble again, money, addiction. My father says it's my fault for bailing him out. My ex-husband says I'm cold. And then today, we landed the account, and everyone's celebrating, and I'm here." Her voice cracked. "I just didn't want to be alone." Something in her confession tugged at an old wound in me. My father's voicemails, my mother's absence, the unspoken guilt that hung like a shadow over every success I had. "I get it," I said quietly. "Family can be complicated." She reached across the table and covered my hand with hers. "I see how you handle stress, Nathan. You're steady, but I also see the sadness you hide. You're like me." I swallowed. "You don't know everything." Her thumb brushed my knuckles. "Then tell me." So I did. I told her about the phone call on the train, my father's drinking, the anniversary of my mother's death. How I had buried myself in work to escape. When I finished, we just sat there, our hands still touching. There was nothing sexual about it, yet. It was 2 people clinging to each other's quiet confessions. Then her phone rang. She glanced at the screen and went pale. "It's him," she whispered. "My brother." "Answer," I said. She put it on speaker. A man's voice, frantic, begged for money. He said he was outside. The line went dead. Claire stood. "He can't be." She went to the window and peered out. "Oh God." I joined her. Below, in the rain, A man in a hoodie stood on the sidewalk, pacing, looking up at the building. "He looks strung out," I murmured. She backed away from the glass. "I told him not to come here." Her hands trembled. "He's unpredictable when he's like this." I felt a surge of protectiveness. "Lock the door," I said. But before she could, there was a heavy knock, 3 hard raps that rattled the wood. "Claire," the voice called, muffled. "I know you're in there." She pressed her back to the wall. "He sounds different." I stepped closer to the door. "Who are you?" I demanded. Silence. Then, "I just want to talk." Claire shook her head violently. "That's not my brother's voice." The hairs on my neck rose. Another knock, softer now. "Open the door, Claire. I know about the money. I know about your little protege." My stomach dropped. Whoever was outside knew about me. "Call the police," I whispered. Her eyes darted to her phone on the counter. She picked it up, but the screen was black. Dead battery. I pulled mine from my pocket, no signal. The storm. The knock came again, harder. "Open up." I scanned the room. A back door, a fire escape. The kitchen window was too narrow. The only way out was through the living room to the back hall. Claire's breathing was ragged. "This isn't happening," she whispered. "It is," I said, forcing my voice steady. "We're getting out." Another crash, this time at the side of the house. A shadow passed the window. "Go," I said, grabbing her hand. We moved fast through the living room, past family photos and art supplies, toward the back door. The knob turned easily. Rain lashed the small courtyard. We stepped out and froze. The man in the hoodie stood there already, blocking the gate, his face half lit by a flickering security light. "You're exactly on time," he said, echoing her words from earlier, but twisted now, mocking. Claire gasped. I tightened my grip on her hand. My heart was hammering so loud I could barely hear the rain. Rain hissed on the bricks, water running down the back of my neck. The man in the hoodie moved one step closer, blocking the gate entirely. His voice was low, almost calm now. "You've been avoiding me, Claire, and now you bring him." Claire's grip on my hand tightened until my knuckles went white. "I don't know who you are," she said, her voice shaking. He tilted his head, the hood sliding back just enough to reveal sharp cheekbones, a small scar above his lip. "You do," he said softly. "Or you used to." I stepped forward, planting myself between them. "You need to leave. Right now." He smiled without warmth. "And you are someone who doesn't like people threatening my colleagues." He gave a short laugh. "Colleague? That what she calls you?" His eyes flicked over me. "You don't even know the half of it." Claire's breathing turned into little gasps. "Please," she said. "Whatever you want. I want what's mine." He jabbed a finger at her. "You think you can erase me? You think you can hide behind your fancy job and this boy?" Something in her expression shifted, recognition, guilt. She whispered, "Oliver." He spread his hands. "Finally, a name." I shot her a look. "You know him?" Her lips trembled. "He's my brother." "But," she swallowed hard, "it's not like you think." Oliver stepped closer. Tell him about the money." "What money?" I demanded. Claire's eyes darted between us. "After my divorce, Oliver was in deep with a loan shark. I borrowed from the company account to bail him out. I was going to pay it back before anyone noticed. But then," Oliver's laugh was like breaking glass. "But then she cut me off, said I was toxic, said I ruined her life." Claire shook her head. "I tried to help you, Oliver. And now you're helping yourself to a new man." His gaze snapped to me. "Do you know what she's capable of?" The courtyard seemed to shrink around us. Rain pooled at our feet. I felt my jaw tighten. "You need to leave," I repeated. Oliver's eyes narrowed. "You're brave. Or stupid." I shifted my weight. My heart pounded, but something steadier rose inside me. "You're scaring her. Walk away." For a moment, none of us moved. Then Oliver's shoulders slumped, his voice softer. "She left me to rot. I've got nothing, not even a roof tonight." Claire whispered, You could have called me. Not this. He looked at her as if she'd slapped him. You wouldn't answer. I felt a flicker of sympathy, but also a prickling sense of danger, like a storm about to break. Let's go inside, I said carefully. We can talk where it's dry. Oliver's eyes gleamed. Fine, talk, but don't call the cops. We went back in, dripping rainwater onto the hardwood. Claire fetched a towel for Oliver. He stayed standing, arms crossed. I kept myself between them, every muscle tight. You're not here just for a roof, I said. He smirked. No, she owes me. She owes you nothing, I snapped. Claire spoke quietly. I took the money, Nathan. He's right. I'm trying to pay it back. But if the firm finds out, her confession stunned me. Claire. She met my gaze, eyes full of shame. I'm not who you think. Oliver chuckled darkly. Heroine turned villain. Bet you didn't see that coming. I ignored him, focusing on her. You made a mistake. That doesn't erase everything else. Something flickered in her expression, relief maybe. You still believe in me? Before I could answer, Oliver slammed his palm on the table. Enough. I'm taking what's mine. Cash. Tonight. I don't have it, Claire said. He reached into his pocket. For a heartbeat, I thought gun. But it was a crumpled photograph. He threw it on the table. It was of a much younger Claire, arm around a teenage boy, Oliver, smiling at some carnival. On the back, in marker, always us. His voice cracked. You promised, Claire. Her hand shook as she touched the photo. I promised to help you, not destroy myself. He looked at me, eyes wet. You don't know what it's like to be left behind. I swallowed. Actually, I do. They both turned to me. My father drinks. He blames me for my mother's death. I've spent my whole life trying to prove I'm worth something. So yeah, I know what it's like. The room went very still. Oliver's face softened a fraction. Then you know why I can't stop. I know you're better than this, I said. You're not a thief. You're her brother. He blinked rapidly. The tension in his shoulders eased, then returned. I just need something. I reached for my wallet, pulling out the emergency cash I kept there. It's not much, but it's a start. He stared at the bills, jaw tight. Why would you? Because somebody has to stop the cycle, I said. Take it. Get help. Don't drag her down. His eyes flicked to Claire. She was crying now, silent tears. Oliver, she whispered. Please. He snatched the cash, shoving it into his pocket. For a moment, I thought he'd lunge again. Instead, he backed toward the door. You're a fool, he muttered. Both of you. He opened the door, paused in the rain. But, thanks. And then he was gone, swallowed by the storm. Claire collapsed into a chair, burying her face in her hands. What have I done? She whispered. I crouched beside her. You tried to help your brother. That's not a crime. It could cost me my job. We'll figure it out, I said. She looked up, mascara streaked, eyes red. Why would you stand by me after this? I hesitated. Because I know what it's like to feel unworthy. And because I exhaled. Because I care about you. Her lips parted, a tiny sound escaping. Half sob, half laugh. You shouldn't. Too late. For a long moment, she stared at me. Then she reached out, fingers tracing my jaw as if memorizing me. I don't deserve you, she murmured. Maybe not, but here we are. She leaned forward, resting her forehead against mine. Outside, the rain softened to a mist. I wanted to tell you everything, she whispered, but I was afraid you'd leave. I'm still here. We sat like that until the kettle clicked off and silence filled the kitchen. The storm had passed by dawn, leaving the streets washed clean and glistening. I woke on Claire's couch with a stiff neck and the smell of coffee drifting from the kitchen. She was at the table, hair pulled into a loose knot, staring at nothing. I made coffee, she said without looking up. I sat opposite her, the mug warm in my hands. The night before felt both immediate and far away, like a dream. Did he call? I asked. She shook her head. No, but the cash you gave him will last maybe a week. Then he has a week to choose differently, I said quietly. She gave a small, bitter laugh. You still believe people can change? I thought of my father, the angry voicemails, the rare moments of clarity when he calls sober and apologize. Some people, sometimes, I said. She traced circles on the table with her fingertip. You don't know what you're risking being near me. If the firm audits, if they find the missing funds, then we'll face it, I said. Together. Her eyes flicked to mine, searching for any hint of doubt. Why? I hesitated, then told her. Because last night I saw the real you, not the unflappable creative director, not the woman in a nightgown at her kitchen table. I saw someone who's been carrying everyone else's weight and still hasn't let it crush her. I've been looking for that kind of courage my whole life. Her throat worked as she swallowed. Nathan. Before she could say more, my phone buzzed. A text from my father. I'm sorry about last night. Can we talk today? I stared at the words. They looked strange on the screen. An apology, clear and simple. You okay? She asked. I think so, I said. It's the first time he's ever said sorry without a but. Her lips curved faintly. Maybe storms break more than just windows. We sat in silence for a while, the weight of choices hanging between us. 2 days later, everything came to a head at the firm. The CFO called an emergency meeting. Numbers didn't add up in the client account. I saw the panic flicker across Claire's face as we sat at the long table, executives lined up like judges. I take full responsibility, she said before anyone could speak. Her voice was steady, almost serene. It was my error, not my team's. I'll repay the funds. I opened my mouth to speak, but she glanced at me. A subtle shake of her head. Not now. The CFO's jaw tightened. You've been one of our best assets, Claire. This is serious. I know, she said softly. There was a pause. Then, unexpectedly, the CEO said, We'll discuss repayment and suspension, but your work has been exemplary. Don't make us regret leniency. Meeting adjourned. The room emptied. Claire sat still, staring at the polished wood table. I placed a hand on her shoulder. You don't have to face this alone. She looked up at me, eyes shining. I already dragged you in far enough. I smiled faintly. You gave me a chance to stand up for something. That's not dragging. Later that night, I called my father. We talked for an hour about my mother, about his drinking, about the years of silence between us. He didn't promise to change, but he didn't yell either. When I hung up, my hands were trembling, but for the first time in years, it felt like a door had opened. I texted Claire, How are you holding up? Her reply came quick. Still standing. Want to walk by the lake? I met her at the edge of Lake Michigan just as the sun was setting, sky streaked with gold and lavender. She wore a simple coat, hair loose in the wind. I needed to breathe, she said. We walked along the water in silence for a while. Then she stopped, turned to me. You know, the night you came over, when I opened the door and said you were exactly on time, I wasn't just talking about the hour. I tilted my head. What do you mean? She smiled, a sad, soft smile. I meant you. You were exactly on time. I was about to fall apart. Something inside me loosened. All the late nights, the quiet glances across conference tables, the shared confessions. They'd been leading here. I'm not perfect, I said. I've got my own ghosts. Good, she murmured. Maybe they can keep each other company. The wind lifted her hair across her face. Without thinking, I reached out and brushed it back. She leaned into my touch, eyes closing. I don't know where this goes, she said. I don't even know if I'll have a job next month. I took her hand. Then let's just start with tonight. She nodded, and for a moment the world narrowed to the warmth of her fingers entwined with mine, the hiss of the waves against the rocks, and the fragile, astonishing possibility of something new. I've replayed that night 100 times since. Her barefoot in the doorway, the rain, the man in the hoodie, the photograph on the table. Everything could have gone wrong. Maybe it still will. But something shifted in me. For years I'd believed that love was something you earned by being perfect. Perfect son, perfect employee, perfect man. That if you kept your head down and your heart locked up, you'd be safe. But sitting in that kitchen with Claire, standing in the rain between her and her brother, calling my father and hearing the crack in his voice, I realized perfection isn't what saves us. Showing up does. Being there even when it's messy, even when you're afraid. Sometimes you're exactly on time not because you planned it, but because someone finally opened a door and needed you there. That's what I carry now, quietly, like a stone in my pocket. The memory of a night when two wounded people reached for each other and didn't let go, and a life lesson carved in rain and lamplight. Being present, even imperfectly, can change everything.